Hey, this is Tarence Lauchié, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this podcast, The Growth Exchange. This podcast was designed to curate conversation, dialogue, and monologue around all things growth. I believe that everything living has the potential to grow into its fullest and most maximal potential. So let's grow. This episode is sponsored by Speak Media Services, where we believe everyone deserves the opportunity to capture and preserve their unique stories. You're not just another number in the crowd. Your individuality matters. Our intimate photography and videography services are tailored to your vision and budget, ensuring your essence shines through. Allow us to help preserve the moments that mean the most. With our support, you'll create cherished keepsakes to treasure for years to come. Speak Media Services, your story, your way. Hey, welcome back. I'm Tarence Lauchié, and you are tuned into another episode of the Growth Exchange podcast. It's a wonderful opportunity for you, our listeners, and even our guests to discuss all things growth. We talk about growth from the internal perspective, spiritual, natural, all things growth. And I'm excited about our guest today because this young man is well on his way to accomplishing some great things. I've got Tim Gray here in the studio. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
I'm much appreciated to be a part of the Growth Exchange podcast and the awesome work that you're doing here in the city of Grand Rapids and in this region.
Well, I was going to give a rundown of you being a talent coordinator for professional development. So we have some similarities as it relates to helping people to assess their strengths as well as their styles and personality assessments. We'll talk a little bit about that. But we'll also talk about your call to ministry. You are an elder now, licensed or ordained elder. Young elder, as they would say, which is an oxymoron, young and elder. And you also are a podcaster. You have your own podcast. So we can start there. Talk to us about, the work that you do in the community, because you've got something that's coming up that's real big, which we'll talk about. But I'm just kind of baiting the audience. So if there's anybody listening, now would be the time for you to have people tune in, and share and click the link and say, hey, you got to check this out. All right. Tell us a little bit about let's start with who is Tim? Who's Tim Gray?
Tim, in simple, is a young man, a young professional who has a goal to impact and find other young individuals find their purpose in life. I've been very fortunate throughout my life to come in contact with a lot of great individuals. I've been able to come in contact with a lot of great mentors, a lot of great people who have inspired change in my life. And so I want to do that for the generation behind me. And so I do that through a number of different ways, like you were mentioning. I'm a talent development consultant. I am a elder as well as youth pastor here in the city of Grand Rapids. At the Renaissance Church.
Shout out to the Renaissance Church.
Additionally, like you mentioned, podcasts, where we're bringing a conference for young adults here to the city of Grand Rapids.
Now, is the podcast the host for the conference?
No, we're actually, Renaissance is hosting the conference.
Gotcha.
Ironically, though, the podcast is the avenue that we're using to market the conference.
Push and market, yeah. Makes sense.
And so
I just did something similar.
Yeah.
So we had the F3 symposium.
Right.
So, yeah, exactly.
And so shout out to the B Generation podcast that we have going with a lot of great other individuals who are collaborating and coming together for the B Generation conference. But yeah, that's pretty much in little terms.
Well, I'll do a whole lot more of pulling out who you are to our audience, because I know you're a modest man and you're not going to sit there and just sing your own praises, because you're humble like that. And you're used to being on the other side. So if you ever want to start interviewing me in this process, because you're a podcaster, feel free. I'll answer.
Hey, we can be here all day.
It's an exchange, though, man, and that's what I like. Is the fact that we're exchanging experiences, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, exposure to the city. You've been in Grand Rapids for quite a few years, but you're originally from further west.
Muskegon Heights. Yeah, so I was born. I can't really say I was raised.
You said you don't remember. You weren't there. No, you remember.
So I was born in Muskegon Heights,
but moved immediately.
Yes, I moved to Grand Rapids when I was about 6 or 7.
Okay.
So
you went to school here.
Yes, went to school here. Of course, at that time, started off in elementary school. And so really I was raised in the city of Grand Rapids, but I had a lot of deep roots in Muskegon Heights, particularly with family and with faith. For years, I still traveled back and forth to Muskegon Heights. So I love Muskegon Heights, but I was still engraved in the community there through those things such as faith and family.
Sure.
And so I never truly left.
Yeah. Well, it's really not that far. For those who may not know geographically, it's what, 37
Right,
minutes?
it's right up the road.
Here, 37 minutes. There are some cities like Detroit.
Yeah.
It takes 37 minutes to just get
Right.
on the other side of town. So yeah, I get it, and I understand that there are a lot of people who've transitioned from the smaller rural towns to the big
Right.
city, Grand Rapids. But we're still connected in some kind of way. We're all kingdom citizens,
Right.
though. The people that I hang out with, regardless of our geographics, I tease people about being from Detroit, because people will say I'm from Detroit and they're from a suburb of Detroit, and I'm talking like a real suburb.
Okay, yeah,
maybe a
so-
30-minute
right.
suburb of Detroit. So I tease them about that. I said, that's not Detroit. I'm from the east side of Detroit. So we share a few things in common as it relates to our professional development choices, our ministerial backgrounds, and then also another issue relating to the fatherhood factor.
Yeah.
You have a testimony of victory and overcoming of having only met your father at age of 16.
16.
Yeah. And I shared off air that I did some extensive research on self-efficacy and the role that fatherlessness plays in our perceived personal self-esteem. And learning the identity of your dad is really synonymous with learning your own identity. I don't know if you want to start there and then move on up to the conference or
Yeah,
what,
we can start.
but
We can start.
let's
there.
talk about it, man. That seems to be a central and recurring theme among my guests, the male ones.
So it's interesting, right? I think about my childhood, right?
Yeah.
Being raised without my biological father. I, again, really did not meet him until I was 16. Of course, when I was born, he was there. I have no memory or recollection of that moment, not until I was 16. But I remember being a child, and my whole goal as a child, I spent my whole childhood trying to be the opposite of who I assumed or thought my father was.
Because he was absent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the whole identity, and this is interesting too, because I'm actually, people don't know this, I'm named after my father, so I'm a junior.
Okay.
However, I despised sharing that name when I was growing up.
Because you didn't know who he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I did not think that the name carried weight
Oh, yeah.
because of who he was.
Yeah.
And so I was the kid who, when I went to school, especially when I came from Muskegon and Grand Rapids, it was a whole culture shock because I was in a inner city school in Muskegon Heights. I came to Grand Rapids and turn around. I go to a predominantly Caucasian school.
Yeah.
I'm a minority now. And all I'm hearing from my peers and my classmates is, my father does this, my father's this person in the community. And I could not share or partake in those conversations because the whole time, number one, I don't know who my father is. And number two, at the same time, I'm carrying resentment and I'm embarrassed about who my father is.
Well, the actual term for that is shame. And you have the shame of something that you didn't even do.
Right.
In fact, you might be the result of the shame in your existence, but you're not the shame. You
Right.
know? So I get it. The irony of our discussion is that the research that I did proved one of the things you just mentioned to be true, that many men who have succeeded in life after having experienced fatherlessness did so because they disassociated themselves from the father that they never knew.
Yeah.
Now, that almost seems oxymoronic because you never knew the guy, but you didn't want to be whoever he was or was not.
Right.
But at 16, you had an opportunity to meet him. And what was it like?
Yeah, so I was 16. I still had kept in contact with my grandmother, his mom. And I remember going to her house once, I think it was on a Saturday, and she had mentioned, hey, your father's actually going to be coming here. And we weren't in contact at that time. So I remember being there. Do I leave? Do I want to stay?
It's weird,
Yeah, I'm having all of these different emotions in that moment. And I remember I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stay. I'm 16 at the time. Never met him. I just want to get a glimpse of the man that I have painted a picture in my head for 16 long years. And I remember being in her house. I remember him getting out the car. I remember him coming in the house. and I see such a reflection of myself.
It's
and,
scary, probably.
Yeah, in physical appearance, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm looking at this man who I don't know, but this man who I do know because of the seed, that I've been carrying from him. And I remember in that moment him coming up to me and saying, "Hey, son," and giving me a hug.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was such a pivotal moment in my life, because when he said, "Hey, son," that changed my whole perspective. Because even though, and this may help somebody, even though he was not in the picture for those 16 years, I'm still his son.
Absolutely. And it spoke to identity.
Yes.
It gave you an inclusion and an identity, and then also something to hold on to, because you probably didn't feel like a son.
Right.
I listened to Kirk Franklin's most recent iteration of his testimony about that fatherlessness experience that he had. And there's one song that talks about being somebody's son. And that makes all the difference in the world, because he's singing to God about Jesus being God's only son. And he says, all I've ever wanted to be was somebody's son as well.
Right.
And so that song came to mind as you were talking about that. I'm glad you shared that. Thank you for sharing that, because it sounds like you got some victory in it.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. I believe in that moment that really helped to shape my identity, because I believe the approval or the reassurance of a father really is such a powerful moment to shape, especially a son's identity.
It's called an affirmation, yeah.
The affirmation, yeah. It's called affirmation. And so in that moment, like you said, even how Jesus calls us his son, God calls us his son, it's like it's an identity moment that reassures you of who you are.
Yeah, or whose you are.
Yeah.
Because to belong to somebody is probably one of the greatest quests of all humanity.
Right.
Is to belong to somebody, to be in a tribe, to be a part of a group, and to identify. You found your tribe, your age group. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to bounce some of that in. You're doing a conference that is a spinoff of what your podcast is about, B. Talk about B.
Yeah, so B stands for Be Everything Generation. And so when it comes to the conference, it was always a desire of mine, and even people in my age group, is how can we live a thriving, holistic life in every area? And so this conference is really surrounded by living a holistic life. And so really the mission of the conference is to empower and equip young adults with the tools, with the truth, and the community to live a holistic life. And we have 4 pillars: financial literacy, career development, faith, as well as mental health.
Okay.
And so it's really surrounded by this idea of, hey, we're not siloed individuals. We're not individuals who are just called to one area or one thing, but we're designed to prosper and live this holistic life.
Yeah, multidimensional.
Yes.
I have a affirmation that comes directly from Scripture, and I was telling another guest that this isn't a church podcast, but we always go there for some reason. I got men of faith, women of faith.
It's in you.
It's in us, and we talk about it unapologetically. But I'm of the firm believer in the persuasion that God put us here to maximize and to become everything that He intended for us to be. We spend half of our life discovering that, and the other half of our life doing that.
Yes.
But I believe that maximizing principle comes from the thief came to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus came that we might have life to its fullest, or maximum life, or life more abundantly.
Yeah.
People have obliterated abundance because they started thinking self-centered, whereas our maximum potential is to maximize God's glory in the earth.
Yes, it is.
At least that's what my personal philosophy has become around the idea of maximizing and growth. Having met your father, having reconciled some of the sense or feeling of shame, you took off and just began to succeed. Talk about your journey and your career before we get to the clergy part. Because I know that's one of the most recent accomplishments is to be ordained as an elder and appointed as youth pastor.
Yeah.
That congratulations.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. But getting to that, the journey.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I still the journey is interesting, right? Let me say this really quick. I remember being a young child. The question I always got was, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I had a different perspective on that, because when you ask, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" right, that can change. hey, I want to be
It usually does.
Yeah. Hey, I want to be an athlete, right?
Everybody starts with sport of some sort. Yeah.
2 years later, hey, I want to be a doctor or a cop and whatnot.
Astronaut.
Right. And so I learned as I was learning myself, as I was growing, like we all do, what we want to do changes with seasons of our lives. But the question I started to ask myself is not what I wanted to be, was what am I here to do? What is my purpose in
That's
life?
a whole different take on that question. So not what do I want to get out of life? No, what do I bring to this world?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And purpose is why am I here? Why purpose is why something was invented or created to do what it does.
And that's Miles Monroe 101.
Right. And so exactly. And so I changed my perspective, right? And so when I started to think about a purpose-driven life, I met my
Rick Warren.
Right. Yeah. All these references, right? And so I met my father, right? And like I told you, I spent 16 years trying to be the opposite of my father. And then my perspective came, how do I make not my name great, but even though my name is the same name as him, how do I make God's name great by using this name?
Yeah.
Timothy Gray. And so that's really where the...
was he in ministry as well?
No.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that.
Sure.
I have no one in my family who was in ministry, who was a preacher, who was anything. So I don't have any ties.
No points of reference.
No points of reference.
That's a good thing.
So yeah, it was really a God thing, a God-centered thing. But when you talk about my journey, I think about how when I was 16 in the church, as a church kid, everybody knows, hey, do Easter speeches, you do all these different things. I was a musician in the church. I was a drummer in the church. I did just about everything in the church. And so my prayer was always, while I'm having this impact in church, how do I bring this into what we call the secular world, but how do I bring this into my career outside of the four walls?
Okay.
And so that's when the initiatives that I started to take off. And so you think about the podcast that I did, right? One of the biggest things was I had this network of all these great people who were doing incredible things. And I said, how do we put this on display to where youth and young adults can see these people share their journeys, kind of similar to this, and know, hey, I can do the same thing. And so that's where I was like, let me start a podcast and bring these people as guests so they can talk about, again, how they got to where they got.
Your podcast was really... became popular right in COVID, right in the midst of COVID.
Yeah, so it was right during COVID, which was another interesting because it was the height of COVID, and it also was the height of the George Floyd situation.
And Breonna Taylor.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. During that time, I had a prayer walk.
I remember that.
You were there.
I was there.
Your son was there. He actually helped. Shout out to Evan and others. And we did this prayer walk, and I didn't know who was going to show up.
Yeah.
I just felt called to do a prayer walk. And it sounded crazy, but I reached out to our mayor. I reached out to the chief of police
and
at the time.
And I had an opportunity to pray in that prayer right in front of the police station just before the riot.
Right. Yeah, at a time of riots and whatnot. We're sitting here doing a prayer walk, and part of my journey has always been to just take the leap of faith, take the step.
That's bold, and I can appreciate that. You think some of that boldness and resilience may have come from the absence of a father, and you had the need to become somebody who you didn't even know, but you had the need to become somebody.
Yes.
Or to be.
Yes, because I felt this void. Because, again, it's interesting, right? I always, my whole thought process is I always want, when I have a child of my own, I always want them to be able to respect who their father is. I want them to be so enamored and so grateful. Like, yeah, that's my father. He does this,
celebrate
this, and this.
fatherhood.
Yes, and because all through my childhood, I did not have that in that moment to be able to celebrate my biological father. And so part of everything I was trying to build was, hey, I don't want my children to ever be or feel the shame that I felt about who my father was. I don't want them to have to feel that about me.
Likewise, I can relate. I can relate to that. I raised my kids as a hyper parent, and I don't mean hyper as in excited. I mean hyper as in hyper vigilant in parenting and giving and doing and sharing and just parenting, being there. Double dadding, as they would say. I dad anybody within 4 feet of me. I'm the dad. Okay, I'll be your dad. And I think that's a gift that's birthed out of adversity. That's something that a lot of people don't recognize until hindsight, that what the enemy meant for evil, God always meant for your good. Yeah, he always meant it for your good, and you were being made and shaped in a crucible, a grinding, if you
Right.
will, of what that was like for 16 years, and even thereafter. Because how old are you now?
I'm 27.
So that means that you've had a few years post the
Right.
16th encounter
Yeah.
to process and
Yep.
to still stand on what it is that you believe you're here for.
Yes.
What are you here for?
I believe, again, going back to purpose, I believe, first of all, of course, everything that we do is for the glorification of God. But I believe my purpose is to bring change, bring transformation and impact to a generation. Now, that's why I said, to me, purpose is more important than than who I'm, not who I am, but what I want to be. Because I believe with purpose, what you do can change, but the purpose and the intent behind it can all be the same. I've impacted people the same on a podcast as I would on a conference. I've impacted people being a youth pastor as I even do being a consultant in my career.
Yeah.
And so the purpose remains the change. How do I impact and help others find their purpose in life?
Yeah. Let's talk about that career choice. Professional development is primarily what it is, but it's talent. Specifically, you're helping people to identify their talents in order to become marketable for employment opportunities.
Yes.
Share a little bit about that. And you can even shout out to your company if you like.
Yeah, so AE Betancourt, here in the city of Grand Rapids, we're now in across the nation, 43 different states.
Congratulations.
And so, and this is interesting, even how I got to become a talent development consultant. I was in nursing school. A lot of people don't know that. And going back to that point, what you want to do changes. I was in nursing school at one point, and
what inspired you in medical? That's a quick sidebar.
Yeah, mostly my mother.
Okay.
She's always been a nurse. She's always been a nursing professional. And so I was like, you know what? It seems like a great career. You're helping people. You're impacting lives. So I definitely want to give this thing a shot. I was in nursing school, and I remember at the height of COVID, being in the hospital. At that time, walking into the doors of the hospital, it was quite the experience.
Sure.
And I said,
pretty grim at the time.
I said, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And you talk about how I started that podcast. I got a call from it was a executive search firm before A. Betancourt, and they were like, hey, we've been seeing you on your podcast and whatnot. We like how eloquent you speak and all these different things. What do you think about interviewing people, but on a different scale as it relates to jobs? And I was like, okay, I haven't really thought about that. And, obviously they say you make some money from it and things of that nature. And so I went and joined this firm, worked there as one of their lead recruiters. However, I got a call from A. Betancourt, one of their employees, who had reached out to me about A. Betancourt. Now, what made A. Betancourt so special was our CEO. He loves to invest and give back into the community. And so we support multiple different organizations and different initiatives here in our local city. And he said, what you're doing there is great, but you can come here, have impact, and also, elevate in your career.
Yeah.
And so I went to A. Betancourt, became a talent development consultant. And so what I get to do every day in my professional career is I get to consult not only with candidates, as we call them, discover opportunities that don't exist, but we also get to consult with companies and organizations.
So you can match the talent with the need. Yeah.
Because a lot of organizations, for one reason or another, they have a need. Because, trying to find not only top talent, but talent that fits into their culture and integrates in who they are in their purpose. We get to do that. So I'm able to consult companies all across the country, culture, talent, strategy, how to retain talent, all those different things. And then from a candidate perspective, we're able to talk to candidates, discover who they are, what they want to do, and how what they want to do can be a match made to be, a part of an organization. So I'm, in simple, connecting great people with great opportunities that they didn't know exist.
Yeah. I think there's a thin line. I don't think there's a huge gap between what we've been called to do in the earth, our purpose, and what our occupations, vocations, and advocations are.
Right.
Our occupations, meaning what you're doing right now, your vocation as in what you trained to do and want to do with your life, and then your advocation is the gifting that God has called you to
Right.
that fits regardless. You
Yeah.
mentioned something that I learned and I've done some similar consulting work with a company called Lee Hecht and Harrison, and they're out of New York. And as a consultant, specifically executive coach and consultant, it wasn't a matter of finding if the person can do the job. It was it was a matter of finding out if they could do the job in that location,
Right.
because that culture and that company had an identity.
Right.
Talk a little bit about what you've learned from your job.
I've learned a couple different things. Number one, I've learned, especially in the climate that we're in now, especially when it comes to people wanting to be connected with opportunities, I learned that people find they're not looking for work, they're looking for purpose. They're looking for a reason to do what they do. And so sometimes when you think about jobs and whatnot, people are not satisfied with what they wake up and do every day. But part of that reason is because they don't know or they don't believe in the purpose of what they're doing.
Right. And they just had a job as
Right.
opposed to finding out who they are, what they were put here to do, and matching that up with skills. There's giftings that I'm sure you can identify
Right.
along the way. Being a Holy Ghost man,
Right.
For those who don't know what that is, we can talk about that. But yeah, you probably discern a lot that people have giftings, and those giftings oftentimes line up with their passions, and their passions
Right.
help to reveal their purpose.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's a great point that you make, especially when you talk about gifting, because a lot of people, like you said, when they know their gift and they discover their gift, obviously they want to match it to a passion and match to where their gift is going to be used and on displayed. Some people, if their gift is not being nurtured or used where they're at, then they don't find any value.
Yeah, they become frustrated.
In it. Right.
It's like having fruit on the vine, but you can't eat it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so one of the most common things that I hear, even when I talk to candidates and whatnot, is, well, I'm just not being used to my maximum potential. Or I have this gift, I have this great thing that I can offer, but it's not wanted or it's not received very well. I want to go somewhere to where, again, I can give that gift
And fulfill a purpose.
And
get paid.
Right, and get paid. And so everything goes back, even our identity, right? Everything goes back to the purpose, the why. Because if you don't know the
Simon
why,
Sinek.
right?
I'm naming all these people who's written these books in development that we use. Your philosophy aligns up obviously with that, but I heard a little bit of the Purpose-Driven Life, which is Rick Warren. I heard a little bit. I heard a little bit of Miles Monroe. God has us here for a purpose, and then also a little Simon Sinek.
Right.
Know your why. So, if you were to write a book, or if you were to publish a philosophy, what would your philosophy be as it relates to this type of work and how you fit into the big picture?
I think my philosophy would go to, of course, learning your why, but being able to activate your why across everything that you do from that purpose-driven life.
Okay.
Again,
Meaning a whole picture, not just one little job or one occupation.
Exactly. Again, I preach the purpose-driven. I mean, I preach holistic, right? And so what I've also noticed is that if one area of your life is lacking, it usually floods over into other areas.
Oh, absolutely.
If your finances are off, you're going to start to have some mental depression and some mental issues that may lead to some mental frustration.
And relationships are off kilter. I put it like this: when your money is funny, change is strange.
Right.
Right.
And so and that went back to that holistic approach. Is I always noticed when something was off in my life, it usually affected every other area.
Wow. So you know this from your own personal experience, not just something you learned.
Right. Right. And again, I'm only 27.
Sure.
But I remember there was a time where I was 21, had got my first, moved out on my own, had my first place and whatnot, and it was great. And then I ran across some financial struggles. And so then it started to affect my mental. I started not being not being whole as well as appreciative in what I was doing at work. It affected even not even wanting to be in a relationship because I said, well, my finances are off. I'm not even trying to be in a relationship and all these different things. And so I seen that firsthand, which inspired me as I journeyed on in my life as to, hey, in every area, although I am a youth pastor. I'm a consultant. You may be a father. You may be a husband. In each area, how do we not collaborate and raise the bar for each individual area, but how do they move in harmony?
Yeah.
And I think that's the bigger picture, because when things are moving in harmony, they're growing together.
I love it. I think that's biblical,
Yeah.
but it's also success training. Success
Right.
training, when we look at the big picture of things, operate from faith base as
Right.
well. But in some of those circles that we swim in as developers of executive talent, not everybody's walking in that
Right.
revelation, and so you have to be careful of how you navigate that space.
Right.
I'm unapologetically Christian,
Right.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm tactful in the way that I bring out to people that you
Right.
need to discover what your God gift is.
Yep.
If you can find your God gift, then your passion now matches up with purpose.
Yep.
And you discover purpose. And so
Right.
many people try to get to a destination when actually it's destiny.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is destiny is ongoing, and anywhere in the interval, that's part of destiny. But if destination was just to get to the seat, then what happens after you're in the seat?
Right.
If it was just to get to that relationship, what
Right.
happens after you get that
Right.
relationship? It was to get married and have kids. After you have the kids, then what?
Right.
So and that's why I believe people are hungry and constantly pursuing, because they don't know purpose. They don't even know what it is they're looking for in some cases.
Right.
People like yourself and what you're doing with this conference, we're going to introduce the conference, we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and go into the details. But this conference gives people an opportunity to be.
Yes.
I like that. I like to play on that word.
Be everything.
Be everything. All right.
And so, yeah, like I mentioned, the number one goal of this conference is to equip. When you think about that word equip means to give people the essential resources and tools so they can go out and be it on their own.
Absolutely.
And so one of our biggest missions for this conference is, although this is a one-day conference, like you said, this isn't the destination. This is part of the journey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about our conference, the Be Everything generation, of course, we're equipping them with tools, we're equipping them with resources in those areas. However, at that conference, they're going to hear from people who are professionals in those spaces, who've actually lived through what they've lived in what the seat that they're in, right? So we're going to hear from financial experts who were once in a place of brokenness. We're going to hear from mental health professionals who were once in a state of depression and whatnot, right? And so we're having people who particularly were in those seats. Now, like I said, the journey doesn't stop at the conference. One of the biggest things is the people in the conference that we particularly chose are right in the same city of our young adults.
Okay.
So they're going to be connected to resources. We're going to have local college representatives on campus.
So if school is an option for people to make as a
Exactly.
choice, they'll have that connection.
Right. Financial advisors and financial experts that they can connect with from a financial literacy standpoint, right?
I love it.
Talking about generational wealth. Where do I start? Where do I begin? What is budgeting? What is credit? All these different things, right? And so our goal is to provide a space where all these resources can be in one location, but not just those resources for that day, but to walk along with them in that journey, even beyond that conference.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it's worth people registering right away, even though it's not until October.
Right.
Is there a website?
There is not a website, but you can follow us on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay.
And so you can follow us at the B Generation.
That's BE Generation.
Yep, BE Generation. One word. And we have our registration link, which is now open. So go ahead and hit that link, which is in the bios of each of those. And there'll be an Eventbrite. And make sure to register. Our capacity is 500, so the first 500 young adults that will be capped. So don't wait, because once we get to the 500, then we got to cut it off.
And people will be wishing they did. We're going to take a quick break, and our sponsors are going to talk a little bit about some things that can benefit folks, but I'm glad you're here. So we're going to pick up this conversation right after this short break. Yeah. If you're a business or a nonprofit looking to tell your story through powerful video, you've got to check out 630 Visions. They specialize in creating high-quality cinematic content that not only looks amazing, but actually helps you grow your brand and connect with your audience. I've seen their work. It's purposeful, professional, and built around your vision. Visit 630visions.com, that's 630visions.com, to learn more and to see how they can help bring your story to life. Hey, we're welcoming back our audience, but looking at the time, man, our 30 minutes is up. That means that we talk fast and we put a lot of content out, right?
Yeah.
But I do want people to be able to register for the conference. I'm absolutely going to have you back for another episode where we can talk in more detail about your work with youth ministry. I love this whole fatherhood conversation because, that's my vein. But what would you like the audience to know about the conference and how can they register?
Yes, what I would like the audience, you all to know, particularly that age range of seniors in high school to 30, which is the target age range for the conference, is come to this conference ready to not only receive information, but receive information to apply to your life for the walk and the journey of life. I don't want this to be a one-day conference to where you come, you kind of get all this brain dump, and then you go and you forget. No, we have real mentors. We have real resources that are ready to walk alongside you in this journey. So looking to register, go to either our Facebook page, our Instagram page, which is, again, B Generation, B-E, Generation, one word. Click on the link in the bio, take you to an Eventbrite page. It is a free event. So there is no cost.
And that's why you're cutting it off at 500 people.
Right.
All right.
There is no cost. So be ready. Go to the Eventbrite, register with your name. Also, bring a friend. If you're in that age range, if you're a parent, if you're a brother, if you're a cousin, whatever you may be, someone in that age range, make sure to get the word out to them so they can be a part, because you don't want to miss this B Generation Conference, October the 11th, here in the city of Grand Rapids.
Tim Gray, thank you so much for being here today on the Growth Exchange podcast. I would love to talk to you off air about how I can help push, promote, and advance this initiative, because I think it's going to make a difference.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for being.
Thank you for having me.
No pun intended.
Right.
God bless, man. Thanks.
God bless as well.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Growth Exchange. I'm Dr. Tarence Lauchié. It's been a pleasure to have these conversations and dialogues with our guests. If you notice, one thing we all share in common, and that is the ability, the desire, and the potential to grow and maximize our fullest potential. So keep tuning in. Share this with somebody, like it, maybe even invite somebody. And if you'd like to be a guest, contact us with the information that's here and available for you. Let's grow.